Hello, everyone, and welcome to our governance call number 12. Sorry. This is our Christmas edition and the last one of the year. And on the agenda for today, we have a brief governance update. And then we have some news about the POP version 2, the pool onboarding proposal. And there will be something about the protocol fees, an ongoing discussion on the forum. And we will be talking about the CFG rewards and some news about the collators. Also, we will continue the discussions that we started last week of the founding documents of the DAO. So that's the agenda for today. So if we start with the governance update, and before we do that, there is another update that is equally important to mention, a huge news, which is the Block Tower news that they are going to launch 4 pools on Centrifuge. And I believe Maker will provide 70 million in junior capital and Block Tower will provide 150 million in senior capital, if I'm not wrong.
You're
1, a 5, and sorry?
Block Tower is providing 70 million in junior and Maker 150 million in.
I mix it around, but that's still a 1 and a 5 and a 0 followed by 6 zeros. So that's a lot of zeros. Anyways, moving on to the governance updates. There are some ongoing proposals right now, and one of them is the block reward and collator cycle proposal, which is currently in a snapshot vote on Open Square. And then there is a request for comment for the renewal of the real world asset market rewards, the CFG rewards. And on Altair, we have a discussion going on from the collators about changing the rewards there as well, and it's on the agenda too. So you'll hear about that a bit later. And also another thing that is important to mention is that we started a collaboration with some of the other parachains in the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem in order to address some of the issues we have with governance, like low participation, and try to brainstorm together and see how we can address those issues and increase participation and make participation easier as well. So we will keep you updated as soon as there are news from there. So that's also another initiative that we took from Centrifuge to do that. All right. That's it for the governance update. And the first point on the agenda is the pool onboarding proposal version 2. And Colin will be talking a little bit about that. So are you here, Colin?
Oh, I'm here. How are you?
Great. All good. Stage is yours, sir.
Cool. Thank you. So the last last evening, I submitted the RFC for the pool onboarding proposal version 2. You can go there for kind of the details, but I wanted to spend just 5 to 10 minutes kind of calling attention to it here before the holidays really set in the new year, because I think the POP version 1 began in April, and we saw about 12 different pool onboarding proposals come through that process. And most recently, Block Tower, and the work that they've done with Maker that Orhan just mentioned. So there've been a couple, we've gone through it's been a hell of a year, I guess I'll say that. But the second piece of this is that, in that time, I think we've learned a lot, both about what works and kind of what doesn't. And for a lot of the POPs that submitted there, I talked to a lot of them. I spent time with them, whether that be on email, chats, Discords, phone calls, kind of helping them understand a bit more the lay of the land of what's been going on in DeFi and what's been going on with Centrifuge, and how they can kind of help us build the ecosystem and how they can help us kind of grow real world assets as a movement through DeFi. So as this POP v2 comes to kind of the forefront now and is being submitted for your input, and that includes everyone, like active pools, people that are currently financing assets through Centrifuge, experts from credit that kind of exist around our community, And then just anyone in our community more broadly who cares about financing certain types of assets or seeing some types of issuers come through Centrifuge. I really want to encourage anyone on this call and anyone that's not on this call, anyone that's a CFG community member or token holder, to contribute their thoughts here. I think one of the key learnings from POP V1 is that we need a lot more community engagement and discussion around the pool onboarding proposal so that there's buy-in and excitement when this actually goes to a full proposal and hopefully becomes a part of governance sometime in the beginning of next year. So I'm excited about this. It's taken a lot of feedback from people who have gone through it directly, from community members, and from a broad group of folks. And so maybe a final thought here before I kind of take any questions or feedback on the initial POP that's been posted is just, I think there's an immense opportunity in this bear market for Centrifuge to become a safe place for those from the real world looking to grow private credit on chain. And I think as a community, we have a commitment to be inviting and to engage and discuss and educate those folks when they're being well-intentioned and they're coming in and trying to figure out, DAOs and protocols and DeFi for the first time. And so I think this is kind of a call to action and an opportunity for us to make a place for these people. But then I also think that when I think about how the protocol will grow and how real world assets will be financed over time, I think this channel and this effort of the POP is going to be a differentiator for the Centrifuge protocol and for the community here. So I'm really excited about it. I hope everyone else here, with those with expertise and input will really contribute. And I hope to see a lot of that feedback, respond to that feedback, and with the rest of the community, kind of bring this into fruition in the early stages of next year. So really excited about it. If there's any questions or overarching thoughts, let me know. And yeah, excited to get everyone involved around this. So that's all.
Thanks, Colin. So questions to this new proposal for the second version of the POP?
Yeah, maybe it's a quick one from my end. I don't know if it's right to say it, but Colin, do you think can you give maybe a quick highlight of the changes you made, and I'm kind of curious on what you think is the big emphasis on what that will do for us, right, with the new POP?
Yeah, so I think first the process is simpler and more straightforward. So that's the first thing. So that if you're an issuer or an asset manager from the real world, you have a much clearer direct line to understanding how this works. That's the first thing. I think the second is that this has become much less objective and rigid and more subjective and fluid as a process, meaning the community and others, I think it really requires, at least in version 2, more input from the community, and also puts more responsibility on any applicant who wants to finance real world assets here to really engage with the community and seek their input and kind of garner their interest in what we do. I think third, the credit group, who's already kind of been approved through governance, plays a more prominent role here as someone that the community looks to and relies upon in the process to report on any potential POP. And maybe fourth and final, and I think this has come out a lot, but I'll say it very clearly here, is that I think we were putting the POP kind of before the idea of financing assets. And I think what you're seeing now with this POP is that there's a responsibility of the POP to speak to and do the work to finance their assets in advance. And I think you see that most clearly with Block Tower and all the work that they did with MakerDAO to secure a $150 million credit line through MakerDAO and then launch a POP process. I think that's the way we want to see it going forward. And I think that's a best practice. And I think it's really hard to communicate all of this in writing or through a forum or whatever it may be. But I'm hoping as V2 comes to light and comes into governance, that'll emerge as kind of the overarching thing, which is the POP is actually the last step in your process. Securing the funding for financing assets is really the first step that should be taken before launching a POP. Thanks, Assad, for the question.
And maybe as a follow-on to that, could we speak to how it's going to be easier now?
The process itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually MDO responded, Sam, to the and did a quick comparison of like one of the first V1 process versus the V2. Very simply put, there's far less polling and voting required from the community. I think there's only one open square snapshot now being proposed in V2 versus in V1. I think there were 2, maybe 3 polls, including like pool party polls. So it was a bit overly prescriptive and overly engineered in V1, Sam, whereas V2 is it requires much less from the community on like a polling and voting perspective, and more about the community engaging subjectively and responding and providing feedback around POPs. That's, I think, the most clear difference from a process perspective that simplifies it and hopefully expedites it.
It would also be good to hear some of those issuers who submitted an application in V1. If there are any of you guys in the call today, like if you had the chance to read the proposal, what you think about it, whether you found it's become easier or just your general input on it. Are there any of you who submitted a POP in V1?
Yeah, we have, but unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to check the version 2 yet, right? So,
all right.
And for my understanding of what Colin is mentioning, is just kind of flipping a little bit the process and just bringing issuers that are a bit more prepared and more ready, actually, to come into the Centrifuge ecosystem instead of the other way around, right? I think for probably the question that we'll have from that one is from the liquidity perspective, right? Because there's a big effort that needs to be required from the liquidity perspective in order to just have enough credit to just create these type of services, right? So it is that if the community will still be kind of part of that journey when these issuers are going to be just fundraising, and how we can probably engage people in the community to support that process.
Great. Thank you, Alejandro, for your input, and feel free to jump in the forum post as well and write your feedback there as well, because you guys have been through the process, so you know what V1 was like. So you are probably one of the best people to actually give feedback on this proposal. So thank you, Alejandro. Anyone else has questions to call in to the POP V2 in general?
I think that we should also describe the onboarding procedure. I already mentioned this on the forum. So if anyone would like to discuss, I invite him to jump into discussion.
That's a good point, yeah, as well. Like we have a pool onboarding proposal, so maybe also have a pool offboarding proposal, like how to offboard pools. And yeah, this is actually also brought up in the post already. So feel free, anyone, to go in and comment on that as well. Anyone else has anything? All right. Thank you very much, Colin, for the explanation. And we will move on to the next point on the agenda, which is protocol fees. And this is not a proposal yet. This comes from an RFC that was started back in March or April. And it was part of, there were other proposals in that RFC back then as well. So the governance and coordination group, we choose to take the protocol fees out and start a separate discussion about that to discuss what it could look like. And Ivan will talk about that now. So please, sir, whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Orhan. Before I dive into details, I would like to thank everyone who already provided feedback in topics. We really received a lot of them, a lot of really input and answers from different contributors. The protocol fee, as you already mentioned, was a part of another RFC, and in order to keep this discussion clean and transparent, the governance and coordination group decided to separate topics and resume the discussion. We summarized all information from previous topic and prepared a clear summary with a list of questions. So if anyone would like to answer them, that will be great. And yeah, talking about protocols fee, I think we should answer why this is important for token holders. And in my opinion, this two main things. The first one, the protocol fee could extend or increase the token utility if the community will decide to choose the native token. This is still not decided yet. On the forum, we can find a lot of discussion. We are discussing if we should select the stablecoin as a fee or native token. And the second one, in my opinion, is one of the most important. This is about the self-sustainability and stability of the protocol, because I think that Centrifuge, this is a long-term vision protocol, and in order to be successful, the protocol should be self-sustainable. So now we are in a bear market, and a lot of projects, big, small, important, have just gone. And the one thing that we can learn from the bear market is not about the investment in the project. It's not even about who invested and how. The number one thing that we can learn, this is the importance of being self-sustainable ahead of time. And protocol fee, this is the things that could help the protocol be successful in the future. Yeah.
Did you have more, Ivan?
No, that's all. If anyone would like to comment and contribute, they are welcome.
Thank you very much. So any thoughts on this discussion about protocol fees? Like, is it something you guys think is important, and what should it look like? What could it look like? Like, one of the questions in the discussion is, like, should the protocol fee be in the native token CFG, or should it be a stable coin or something else, or how?
Another question I think is important: who should be charged, the issuer or investor? This is still not decided, and the structure of the fee also still not decided. We received some input from Rowley, but yeah, this discussion is open and anyone could contribute.
Yeah, I think what currency the fee should be implemented. I can share a bit like my personal opinion. This is obviously based on talking to quite a few issuers, but also like figuring out what's possible on a technical level. I think ultimately, like, the fee itself has to be in like some stable denomination, because if as an issuer, like, I can't like have an unpredictable amount of fees, right? So we already know that basically the fee needs to be related to like what the currency of the pool is in. So like if it's a USDC pool, of course, it's going to be USDC. Probably if it's a Euro stablecoin pool, it's going to be Euro based, right? But like I need to be able to, when I launch the pool, I make the model, I pay this in fees, this is the interest, right? And all this stuff. So like if you have some variable fee in there, it just becomes impractical. So from that, so we know the fee is going to be denominated in dollars or euros or whatever it is. Then when you think of it that way, like probably the issuer will want to like actually pay in stable coins and not like manage CFG. So we could allow them to do that, and just pay in USDC and like swap, or like there's a way to integrate a DEX and kind of like abstract what the chain does away. But I think like looking at Maker and other protocols that actually have fees go into the treasury, Aave, for example, does that as well. The Aave treasury actually gets paid in the currencies of the Aave markets. So like, for example, the real world asset market is actually paying real world asset USDC into the Aave treasury. So, and then actually the Aave treasury can decide how to manage those funds, I think. And it oftentimes actually works better to do that than like swap in the moment. And so I think it's quite a common model that Aave uses, that Maker, for example, uses, right? Maker, all the stability fees, they're paid in DAI, then they go into the surplus buffer is what they call it. And from there, once it reaches a certain level, then they automatically start to sell DAI for Maker and burn the Maker, right? And that could be something, I think it's quite an interesting mechanism that maybe works better actually than trying to like ask people to pay in CFG. And I personally like it because it allows also the treasury to then decide on their own what to do with the fees that are accruing in the different stablecoins.
Thank you for providing your opinion on this, Lucas. What do others think? And I know there are some issuers in the house here, and do you guys think this would be a good way to do it in a stable denomination?
But does this technically possible now to have the treasury in stable?
I think it's something, even if I think it is some extra work to do from a technical level, like Substrate itself doesn't have that support yet. But I think this will be something we have to build anyway, because when you think of like paying contributors to the DAO, like it would be nice to be able to pay contributors in stablecoins, right? So we don't have all these like weird calculations and changes when the price changes. And so I think it's even maybe like, even if we don't take the fees into account, something that we might want to do anyway. I also know quite a few other Polkadot projects are thinking of doing the same, including the Polkadot treasury itself. Actually, they also want to have the ability to start holding stable coins and paying certain things in stable coins. So I wouldn't say this should be the obstacle, whether it's possible or not. I think it'll be actually not that hard to implement.
Sam, it sounded like you wanted to ask something before. Go ahead.
Yeah, in general, when we begin paying for protocol service fees in stable coins, then the value of the service does not easily get captured in the token native to the application. So if we are going to do that, it would be a requisite to route at least some, if not 50 or 80 or 30, whatever the value would be, of the revenues to buy and burn CFG in a price inelastic manner, which is in the example that Lucas brought up with Maker is what's happening. So the service is gaining access to liquidity, and you pay for the interest, and it would be important to collect that and reflect it to the value of the token that keeps all of the alignment of incentives.
Thank you, Sam. Did you already comment on the post on the forum? It would be very great if you could basically encapsulate what you said here and provide it in that post, so we have all the feedback in one place. That would be really great.
In the pop thread?
No, in the link that was
The
just
protocol
posted in the chat
chat.
now. Yeah, thank you. All right. Yeah, what I asked before, yeah, are there any thoughts from the issuer's perspective here, like whether you think it's a good idea or doing it this way? If you've had the chance to think about it. All right. Otherwise, the discussion is still ongoing. So the RFC, the request for comment, is not posted yet. So that would be the next step after we have gathered enough feedback from the community, issuers, and whoever has an opinion on this. And yeah, provide the input there. But I just want to, Sam, just want to encapsulate what you said. So if I get you right, you meant to charge a stable coin as a fee and then use that to buy back CFG tokens and buy it. Was that roughly the scope of it, or did I misunderstand?
Buy it and burn it. So
Buy it
that,
and burn it.
very transparent, immutable, auditable trail of how the value created by the protocol to the issuers, and maybe on the other side as well to the lenders, actually gets encapsulated in the value of the protocol tokens, which is effectively what the maker model is.
An interesting point. What are your what do other people think about this this idea?
I think this is a good trade-off between the native token and increasing the token utility of CFG. I'm not sure if this is technically possible and how to implement, but yeah, this is a good idea.
I think no good conversation about burning tokens can go without mentioning the need to think about like how fees get used for growth and development versus turning profits to token holders, right? So always like the heart of the conversation about burning. Definitely think burning is a burn mechanic is a good way to recoup value, if you will. But yeah, there's probably a longer journey to go on to make sure that we're protocol is growing and sustainable before doing that.
So there is already like a treasury native way to do this, which is like, right, the Polkadot treasury actually has this functionality already today. I think, and those parameters are all configurable, but there's a fixed percentage that every month gets burned on in Polkadot of the DOT treasury, or for us it would be the CFG treasury. So I think, yeah, there's like some precedent in how Polkadot projects do it. So the buying part isn't implemented yet, or there is no way for that to happen yet on chain today, but that's just integrating some sort of like decentralized exchange or auction mechanism like makers doing it. The one thing I would say is, like, I understand, Sam, why you want this to be tightly coupled with this proposal. From an implementation standpoint, like, I would always say it's better to like split these things up into smaller things that we can roll out once, like one after the other. From an engineering complexity side, it's always better to like not make these massively complex like features. But I do think like it's so I think it could be a good idea to start like designing this and coming up with an equal like proposal maybe that would outline how this could work. The burning part.
Counter example to that is you could say, okay, it's easier to throw the astronaut out of the spaceship and then separately from giving him a lifeline, but you want to put the lifeline on him, her, before you send them out. In a way, this is like, we're now going to make the protocol free to use, and stable fees, no value gets captured. It could easily be sort of disillusioning to participants. So I understand the technical argument. I'm all in favor of building things in smaller modules that are easier to execute. We're fully aligned on that. It's something to debate.
But I definitely think you should bring it up in the post on the forums. And it seems like you got quite a few people's attention here, and nothing brings people more together than mentioning the word burn. So go ahead and just post it, and it would be great to hear what others think as well. So thanks for bringing that up. All right.
Yeah, to the point of technical difficulty, I totally get it. You know, how are we going to ensure that it's automated? You know, protocols like Gelato or Oak Network aren't fully live yet. And then where are we going to actually execute the trades to make the stable coin going to CFG for the purchases? So I get the technical aspect, bringing with it some complexity. But yes, I'll mention it in the forum now.
Great. Thanks a lot. All right. Then if there's no one else who has anything to add or to ask, we can move on to the next point on the agenda. So anyone else last questions? All right. So the next point on the agenda was the CFG rewards, and that means for real world asset market and Tin Lake. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there is a request for comment for minting the CFG rewards for the real world asset market on Aave, and the governance and coordination group has proposed to mint the same amount for the same period, so 100,000 CFG for a 3-month period time. And there are already some people who have commented on that post and suggested that why we don't do it for a 6-month period. So basically mint 200,000 CFG for 6 months instead. So because it's not going to change the emission. So, and it seems like a couple of people thought that would be a good idea. So any thoughts on that proposal to mint for 6 months instead of 3 months for the real world asset market? Anyone has any thoughts or feedback regarding that? All right. Otherwise, the RFC is still ongoing for I would say probably at least another week, and then it will move on to a open square snapshot vote. All right, and the other proposal is one that the governance and coordination group is planning to propose next week, or within a week at least. That's for the Tin Lake rewards that we will, because they are running out the rewards soon as well. And so we need to mint some new rewards to reward the users of Tin Lake. But this one, this will be posted within a week. So there's nothing specific suggested there yet. All right.
A quick question on the minted tokens. What will be what's the going practice now for liquidation of those minted tokens? Who is effectively the counterparty for those tokens when there's liquidity needs?
Good question. Anyone care to take that question from Sam?
Not quite sure what you mean, like when there are liquidity needs. Like,
Yeah, so the newly minted tokens are used to cover certain expenses. And in that instance, are there parties that are willing to provide the liquidity in exchange for the CFG tokens that are minted, and buy them from you to cover maybe your fiat expenses? What's the liquidation process involved in generating the cash needs with the CFG minted.
I mean, I think most people, and it's been a while that I've looked at these numbers, but most Tin Lake rewards recipients have held on to the CFG. A small amount ends up on the market. I think that data is public. I don't have any like up-to-date numbers, but in the end, like I think most issuers, most like larger investors are kind of like holding on to these tokens. Like, so it's hard to say in the end, right? Like there are certain exchanges that list CFG where you can trade them if you do need to access liquidity, but that there's not really any short answer to that other than like, yeah, it's a mix of all of it. Is that kind of answer your question, or not sure?
Yeah, thanks. I didn't register the particulars until I actually pulled up the link, so I was misplacing my question. No, this makes sense. I was initially thinking of new tokens minted for treasury purposes. But yeah, get it. Cool.
Anyone else? Questions regarding the rewards for Tin Lake or RWA market? All right. Swiftly moving on then to the next point, which is the collators. There are two things there, and the one is that we recently the Altair Council chose the next 5 collators to be onboarded on Altair, and there will be a referendum vote at some point where air token holders has to vote on the onboarding of them. So, and the other thing is that one of the current Altair collators, P. Menzik, which I believe could not make it to this call, started a discussion about changing the rewards for the Altair collators, which currently is 2,500 air per collator per month, and currently they are paid as made as a treasury proposal. So we have Path Rock Network. Patrick, one of the collators, do you want to bring this to the community's attention, the discussion that's going on?
Yeah, I can do that. Hello, first of all, I'm Patrick, representing Path Rock Network, one of the initial collators on Altair. And P. Menzik, one of our colleagues, raised the issue of increasing the rewards for the Altair collators, as has been mentioned here already. One thing to mention there is that currently running a collator or for the past 6 months isn't really profitable and doesn't even cover the server costs. Some of us have listed our setups within the discussion on the forum, well, where we can see that most of the servers are more expensive to run the collator, and hence, therefore, we thought it would be a good idea to increase the rewards for the Altair collators. To what extent would have need to be discussed, obviously, because the discussion ranged from some are running the Altair collator on a, I don't know, $15 virtual private server on Contabo, which will not be enough once the network really gets going. So others are running on a bare metal server, which costs around, I don't know, $100 per month. And so I think this is definitely a discussion we have to keep on having. And yeah, it's a bit a thing of, okay, what does the project want? Where does the project want to go? Do they want to have reliable collators that run certain hardware? Being bare metal being in favor there for many projects, it is the case. And yeah, this is actually where we'd like to go, and then try to try to increase the rewards for the currently running collators.
Thank you, Patrick. I just linked to the discussion on the forum that is currently taking place. So these amounts that the collators currently are paid was made like back in the spring, and obviously the market conditions have changed meanwhile. So I personally think it makes sense to take a look at them again. I have no specific suggestions to what it could be changed to, but I do think it makes sense to look at the numbers and start a discussion of what they could look like, or at least temporary in this market situation. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this this discussion about the rewards?
Maybe just to add one point, since the rewards for the Altair collators come from the treasury directly, it wouldn't be a problem to adapt the rewards and also take the current market price of Altair into account, and then adjust the rewards once the market picks up again, for example. But it's always nice if a collator at least gets his server costs covered and also maybe a little profit for running the network.
Thank you for that, Patrick. So yeah, as it's not a proposal yet, it's just a discussion on the forum. So anyone who has any input on this, please go and provide the feedback. And if the collators need some assistance in how to take this forward, don't hesitate to contact the governance and coordination group, and we will help you in that process as well.
And specifically, this is for Altair collators, and the compensation would be coming from CFG Treasury?
Altair Treasury.
Altair Treasury.
Yes. I believe there are currently around like 19 million in the Altair Treasury. And right now, the payouts, the rewards are done as separate Treasury proposals. So there are actually 5 Treasury proposals, one for each collator every month. But this will be automated in the future, just like the ongoing proposals on Centrifuge. The block rewards will, if passed, make this process automatic for the Centrifuge collators too. So the same mechanism would be applied on Altair as well. Ryan, sorry.
Yes.
I didn't see.
No,
I am
no.
very bad at multitasking, so I cannot don't always pay attention to the chat.
No,
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Don't be sorry. Thank you so much, Orhan. I appreciate having a moment to speak. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Patrick was saying. I know I'm somewhat new to everybody here in the community. I did crowd loan to you guys. I am now with Lucky Friday, and I'm the director of fellowship and protocol relations. And so we just recently reached out and spoke. I've been mostly communicating with Ash about becoming a collator, and apparently one of the 5 that was supposed to come on under the new set are not showing up. So now we're going to take that place. And just to kind of piggyback on what Patrick was saying previously, our CTO is Will Rupchen from Paradox. As you guys may know him, he's on the Kasama Council. And the cost of running these servers, especially we run bare metal co-located, across 6 different countries, it can be prohibitive, especially when the rewards are this, don't cover the actual cost of just even running the hardware. And but I'm sure that can all be adjusted. So we're excited to be here. We're just trying to support every Polkadot parachain in the ecosystem. And but one thing that I also wanted to ask as well is to see if we maybe either from the current collators or from the team, if we could possibly get the bond OTC. We actually were going to buy the bond on the open market, and even buying $70 worth, move the market by 15%. So we're hoping that we could just maybe get the 100,000 coins from you guys to get our collator set up, and then we could pay you OTC just to get this process running, or maybe we could do something with the fellow collators who have enough coins. I don't have anywhere near that from my crowd loan, But so I just wanted to throw that out there. But and I'm also, as a governance nerd, I just really excited to be here because seeing people show up and do this kind of work is important. I speak on the AAG thing for the Kusumarian each week. I've been going for about a month and a half. I think governance is going to be really important in Web3 moving forward. So kudos to everybody here for being part of this discussion and just paying attention to the issues. And thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Ryan. Welcome to the community, and thank you for both providing your input and presenting yourself. And as far as the bond goes, if I remember correctly, I believe this was asked in the first round as well, whether it was possible. I don't think it was an option to do it OTC. It would have to be on the open market, but someone please correct me here if I'm completely wrong.
Correct, it wasn't possible for us.
Right. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, that's what I remembered as well, because I remember some colleagues inquired this as well back then. So unfortunately, as far as I know, there is no option to do that. So just to let you know about that, Ryan.
Thank you. I will definitely convey that to the team.
All right. Thanks a lot. Okay. Any other thoughts on this collator? Otherwise, we can.
I think to maybe expand the scope a little bit to allow for everyone to make an informed sort of participation, it might be helpful to kind of reiterate what's the value of Altair to CFG, since CFG token holders are here as well, that it's serving as this test net. Why is it important to retain a test net and maintain its collators and its functionality? It's probably worth hearing some voices around that.
I think it's an important question. It's a little bit off topic, not on the agenda, but I still think it's important. So let's give it a couple of minutes if anyone wants to comment on that. It's actually a very good question, Sam. Like the value of Altair in relation to Centrifuge. That was your question, right? Right. Anyone care to comment on that? No comment?
I mean, I can just kind of point to like the conversations we've had about this in the past, and maybe like some of the, like, I think there were at least like 3 or 4 instances where we caught very severe bugs on Altair that would have very big impacts on like the operation of Centrifuge. So I think this by itself is like super valuable. I think that's, but yeah, maybe it is like a topic for a future governance call that we can also prepare a bit and like get people to chime in and have like for example, also some of the engineers that are working with Altair a bit more on here. That's as much as I can come up with right now on short notice.
Thank you, Lucas. Hopefully that answers a little bit for now, Sam, but I think it's a good idea, yeah, to have this as a separate topic in maybe even in a community call. And I'm not even sure if it's in a governance call, but definitely have it on the agenda for one of the future calls, and then we can spend more time and we can prepare for it as well. So thanks for bringing that up as well, Sam. Okay. So we move on to the next point, which is the founding documents of the DAO. And it's just going to be very brief because we don't have a lot of time left, and I have something else I want to ask you guys about as well towards the end. But basically, the 4 documents of the DAO is something that Kate expressed her opinions about on the forum. So she gave her view on what it could look like and why they are important. And basically, the documents are, the first document is the shared mission. The second one is our principles. The third one is the code of conduct. And the fourth one is the level of engagement. And we started the discussion last week already, and Kate gave a thorough presentation. So please do rewatch the governance call from last month if you need to be refreshed on what that was about. But we obviously don't have time to go into details in all of those documents right now. So, and the general consensus was that it is important to have these documents, and they do add it does add value to have them. So what we need to do is we need to agree on what they should look like. So I want to ask some like general questions instead of being very specific. I just want to ask some general questions to those of you who have an opinion on it. And it's mainly related to the code of conduct. And that's, firstly, by the way, these 4 documents will be proposed by the governance and coordination group sometime next year, in the beginning of next year, probably January. And it will be split into two documents. So, but I want to ask you a question, all of you, mainly regarding the code of conduct. And that is an open question. Where do you guys think a code of conduct should apply? Because it's very hard to write a code of conduct. Most people agree that it's a good idea to have it. People will probably not agree on the content, but where should a code of conduct apply?
I commented on the post and like, had some questions about this and never followed up, but because I actually thought the conversation was like really good and gave me a lot to think about. So I'll share here that I really do feel like the way Kate has identified the way these different pillars work together, and like the code of conduct helping to contribute to kind of our culture of behavior, what we expect of like the pure social layer, like how people interact. It's a really good place to focus that energy and time. And I think the code of conduct does a lot to help try to encourage good culture, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of my interpretation of it, and I think it's really useful. I had some questions that I had asked about, like, how do we prevent, like, let's just say generally speaking, like bad things happening, but I think there's processes and areas we have at the top or governance proposals where the real details of that can be focused. And so the code of conduct is kind of this cultural document that helps to, smooth the social layer over almost.
Great point. Thank you, Assad. Anyone else? Some thoughts on that?
There are 2 components out of it that I think is critical for it. The first one is the implementation of the law, but the second one is the monitoring, right? Because at the end of the day, if you are not monitoring this code of conduct, like it is completely irrelevant. And it's how do you do that? Because it can be really tricky actually sometimes in these decentralized environments.
Good question. So what you're asking is like, who will be monitoring the behavior and enforce this code of conduct? Is that what you're asking, Alejandro?
Yeah, and how you do it, right? Like it's just it's not even a question. It's a comment actually out of this code of conduct, because I have seen it as well in some other DAOs, right? And at the end of the day, yeah, this code of conducts end up being just a nice document that is presented, but realistically nothing happened with it because it's so hard to implement and to monitor, right?
Good point. I mean, my opinion, my view on it is like it's a collective effort. It's not the effort of the few to monitor and to keep an eye on what's happening, but the governance and coordination group will be the ones like enforcing the code of conduct. But in my view, it's a collective effort to monitor these things. But you are right, it's hard to do and it's hard to be everywhere. So and it's just as hard to actually formulate a proper code of conduct as well. So it's not easy.
I think that's a really good point, Orhan. It is collective. Like if it's just 2 police people going around checking on the code, it doesn't really work. But I do think it is like the thing that will catch us, right? It's the after the fact A code of conduct is directing behavior, but I think we have more the principles to do that, and like just our general culture. And the code of conduct applies when someone oversteps the boundary. And so always the question is like, who gets to decide what is overstepping? How do we make that very clear so that before the fact, so the overstep doesn't happen? And how do we make the consequence of an overstep very clear? So that's also a deterrent. But nothing's going to help us more than actually building a very good culture with good principles that we live up to every day and holding each other to account. So if you see, and it's so there's so many gray areas in a code of conduct or in a DAO, right? Is someone, you know, just kind of getting away at another person, like relentlessly asking annoying questions? Like, is that something we need to take action on, or like is that the code? Does that code of conduct apply here, or is it maybe someone else who is leadership in the DAO can come in and say, hey, what's going on here? Or perhaps there's like what Colin is suggesting is like there's a place to go if you notice something. And obviously that's a very small example, and there can be very much more hardcore examples of trolling, of FUD, of harassment, of so it's a tough area, and we just need to keep having these conversations and try to come up with like real life scenarios and work back from there.
Yeah, agreed. Anyways, we are running out of time, and this is a topic I would have loved to spend more time on. I think it's a topic we should spend more time on, because these documents that we want to, nothing is written in stones, by the way, we still haven't proposed it yet, so we are trying to figure out what they could and should look like. But I want to take I wanted to finish here towards the end with asking all of you, like, since this is the last call of the year, like, what do you think was the best thing that happened this year for Centrifuge? And it could be an upgrade, it could be an event, it could be a partnership, it could be anything, really. So which one do you think was the best or the most important one for Centrifuge this year? So I know we're running out of time, but I would love to hear a couple of you like say it out loud. Just, you don't have to explain it, just say one word like this or that. So no need to clarify why you chose that, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think.
The governance committee being established. Pretty stoked about that.
All right. Thank you. Who else? Go ahead. Don't be shy. You can write it in the chat if you don't want to speak up. The governance process being ratified. Good. Credit group and pub. All right. Well, there are a lot of things. Block Tower make a deal. I'll jump on that one as well. All right, yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have time to hear everyone, but there are a lot of things that has happened this year, and all important, but which one is your favorite? All right. We can maybe start this as a tweet and do it that way, but I think we should remember all the good things that have happened in 2022 and remind each other of it. With that in mind, I'm going to finish the last governance call of this year and wish everyone in the community, everyone in this call, and everyone else happy Christmas and holidays. Even if you're not celebrating, have a nice time. You have your Santa there, Sam. That's great to see. So enjoy the holidays, look after yourselves, take care, and we'll see you all in the new year. See everyone.
Yes, bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Orhan. And
Goodbye.
Quentin, if you're still there. No, he's gone. I wanted him to, great, sorry.